Hi, my name is Dale Schultz, and I consider myself a lifelong resident of the Brooklyn area here, and what I would like to do is share a little bit of the Brooklyn story through what I used to call the Brooklyn Walk. So we're going to take stops around town, and as we stop, we'll look at what present day Brooklyn looks like at that location, but I'll tell you a story or two from that location that just brings back some of the wonderful past of Brooklyn. And for the Brooklyn kids who came here, it was kind of a parting gift for them, because I always wanted the Brooklyn kids to feel proud coming to school here, and they're part of the Brooklyn story too, just by coming to this school. So I hope you enjoy this little walk around town and some of the stories you'll hear. And then this school was the second school that Brooklyn had that was basically a K-12 building that later turned into just a high school. This school here's location is pretty interesting because it's located right in front of where our current Brooklyn school is, right in the parking lot, and part of that cafeteria that is the shape out front. That's where the old school was located. And an interesting fact, when they were digging up the ground for that building, they actually dug up some of the bricks from that actual school building there, and they didn't understand where they were digging up bricks from, and then they were told later that was our old school. I actually got to see this school torn down when I was in first grade, looking out a first grade window, seeing a wrecking ball come and destroy that old high school was kind of an awesome thing to watch as a little one. So that school was located right here next to us. So we're walking up Main Street right now. So here we are at a location, at one particular house here right on West Main Street, Brooklyn. I asked the kids, what do you suppose these things are here? And the kids have a lot of great guesses. And finally, one of the kids will mention, those look like hitching posts. And I asked the kids, well, what's the hitching post for? Well, that's where you tied up your horses. And I explained to the kids that when Brooklyn was a baby town, this street was all dirt and mud when it was wet, and the sidewalks were wood. And when people came into Brooklyn, they literally brought their horse and wagons, or they brought their whole little herd of animals. If they were taking them up to the meat market for the trains, they would walk them right up through town. As a matter of fact, one of the first rules Brooklyn had when they became an incorporated village was you were no longer allowed to walk your animals on the sidewalks, because it was raising heck with all the people's personal sidewalks and on their yards. So you had to keep your animals out in the road. But cars weren't invented yet when these were around. So here we are, kids, we're stopped here, and this street here is Bowman Street. And I want you kids to gaze down at the very end of this dead-end street, down where the trees are at the very end of the street. And imagine there's a little bitty building right there. It only has one room. That's where the first jail of Brooklyn was located. It was nicknamed the Cooler. Well, why was it nicknamed the Cooler? Well, that's where people went to cool off when they did some things that broke the rules of town. It was a place where people who maybe lost their temper, got a little out of control, maybe drank too much alcohol, made bad choices, not being very respectful, that's a place where they went to cool off. The last prisoner that they put in that jail actually burnt a hole in the roof and climbed out through the hole and probably just went home to milk his cows, because he was probably not a bad criminal as much as someone who just needed to go to the cooler for a reason. And after he was done with the chores, they probably brought him back into town so he could finish serving his time in the jail. But after he burnt a hole in the roof, they took that jail down then. So we're still on Bowman Street. We've just walked a few feet from the corner, and this empty lot here, even though kids, there's nothing here right now, imagine there was a house built on this spot right here. And that house was owned by a gentleman named Hiram Capwell. And Hiram Capwell offered his home as the first school for the kids in Brooklyn to come to then, because we didn't have a school building yet. So Hiram offered his house as the first school. So here we're down here at the other end of Bowman Street, and this area right here to the side, this lot, as well as a building that is behind the lot here, this used to be the location of a creamery that the local farmers around the Brooklyn area had a place to bring their milk that was turned into butter and cheese. This creamery was a big business in Brooklyn. Back in the 1930s and 40s, it would have up to 38 people working in just this one business itself. So it was a huge deal for the farmers as well as the community to have this creamery. What happened is the creamery ended up being sold later on, and it closed down. But before it actually closed, in 1957, there was a butter tasting contest in Wisconsin with all the other creameries around the state. And Brooklyn was declared the grand champion with the best tasting butter in the entire state in 1957. So another really cool thing about our Brooklyn story. Once the building was closed down, it was left abandoned for several years before they finally tore the building away, because it became a safety hazard for people trespassing and going in there and possibly playing around, like me. So here we are in the Legion Park right now, and buried in the park at this location here is a time capsule that celebrates the 100th birthday of when Brooklyn actually